here's the difference is that there's not chromosomal structures within continents.
No, but that's sex.
No,
right?
but we would make the argument that sex and gender are directly related, and what makes the Western tradition unique and should be appreciated and defended is that gender and sex have always been directly related.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are good. Guys, we're going to be reacting to Charlie Kirk tears apart pro-trans kid activists. Guys, let's go right down to this.
What's up?
Alright, so I think the difference is between a gender and a sex.
So
culturally speaking, in a lot of different historical societies, from Africa to the Pacific Islanders, there's long been held a distinction between what a gender is and what a sex is. With the sex being sexually, you either have a penis or a vagina, whereas gender-wise, there's been a lot of more fluidity there. Specifically with the Pacific Islander example, they've considered there to be up to like 4 or 5 different individual genders, not just man and woman, but also considered things like, now I can't remember the names that they had for them. But there was always that idea that gender was a social construct, whereas sex is a biological construct. So there have to be only 2 sexes, but there can be any number of genders because obviously it's a social construct. Whatever society agrees on would have to go. What do you think about that?
So just because civilizations have done it in the past doesn't make it a good idea. But recognizing that it did happen, we would make the argument that there's 2 sexes and 2 genders, and gender and sex are directly related.
Why would you say it's not a good idea to differentiate? It's because it seems to me that with all the people out there yelling that there should be more than one gender, it would make the most societal sense.
Well, I do believe there's more than one gender.
Yeah, of
course.
course.
It's always
No, I didn't mean trap in words. I know.
open for debate and dialogue.
But how many genders would you say there are?
Well, I myself don't really see a need to limit that idea. As if it is a social. So, for instance, continents, right? Continents are a social construct. The idea that there are 7 continents comes down to simply what lines have been drawn historically speaking. From my point of view,
I've never heard that one before, but that's
it's an interesting thing to look into historically speaking, because look at like Europe and Asia, for instance. The 2 of them look like they should be
right.
one
But
land.
here's the difference: is that there's not chromosomal structures within continents.
No, but that's sex.
No,
right?
but we would make the argument that sex and gender are directly related, and what makes the Western tradition unique and should be appreciated and defended is that gender and sex have always been directly related.
Except they haven't, Western speaking.
In the Western tradition, yes.
The ancient Greeks haven't. The ancient Greeks are where we get our Western tradition from originally.
Against it. The ancient Greeks were not part of the Western tradition, but I would say that some of our thinking and some of the inspiration of the founding came from Aristotelian or Socratic or Plato. Yeah, I would say that. But not everything the Greeks did,
not everything.
we adopted. But the Western tradition, so post-1800, gender and sex being directly related. This comes back to a question of identity. So the question is, can you choose to be something that you're not? You would say, no. I mean, you could choose. You have the freedom to be whatever you want to say, but you also don't have the power to force me to call you something else.
Getting lost a little bit in that point, because I think it's an interesting idea. That said, I know exactly where this is going to end up leading, but I'm going to ask the question anyway.
Sure.
If I were a police officer, right, and I wanted to become a lawyer, what's to stop me from doing this?
Nothing. You can go to school and become certified towards that.
So
But that's an identity based on merit. That's an identity based on choice.
I could be a really shitty lawyer.
But you have to pass the bar, don't you?
Yeah, but
So
a
that's
lot
merit.
of really shitty lawyers pass the bar.
Well, no doubt, but there is some form of achievement standard to become a lawyer, whether
Maybe,
it
but
should or
in
not.
America, the entire idea of choice, right? You know, we have democracy. We get the choice to be whatever we want to be.
No
That's
doubt,
always
but
been part of our
you don't have the choice to tell me what to call you. That's the problem. You see where that starts to get kind of dangerous. Yeah, anyone can be anything they want. I mean, I know plenty of transgender people, and I consider some of them friends.
So you rather think that rather than say, okay, I can be whatever gender I want, but you don't need to necessarily.
Of course, you have the
decide
freedom. I don't think a government agency should come through. You know what I do think is dangerous? Adding a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th box on a birth certificate, which is already happening in Canada. They're adding a non-binary box in Canada for gender. I think that's wrong. I think that's morally reprehensible.
Now, I would disagree on morally reprehensible, but I think that is an
Do you want me to tell you why I think it's morally reprehensible? Because children typically live in a state of confusion. Would you agree? They're trying to understand language. They're trying to understand their place in the world. Let me finish real quick. No, let me finish. So to add more confusion to a child's already discovery in a place in a very chaotic world, I consider to be morally questionable, if not reprehensible. It is society's parents and communities' right to try to guide a child to develop into a chaotic world. To say to a child, oh, you can choose whatever you want to be, that's adding more chaos into a child's life that will only lead to suffering.
I would have the caveat that I think children are pretty chaotic beings.
No, that's what I'm saying. So why add more chaos to a child's life? So in Canada, they have a third box right now, which is a non-binary box, where you can allow a child to choose whatever gender they want to be, which is fine later on as they start to mature.
Now, see, for me, the line that I would draw is, I see where you're coming from with that. And for me, the line would be more of a matter of, we talk about transgender, and you talk about actually changing one's sex. Actually going through the surgery.
Which, of course, everyone has. You have a right to do that.
See, actually, I would almost disagree with that more about their child thing. Because you see parents going out there and allowing their children doing that.
So let me give you an example. So in Oregon, without parental consent, at age 15, you can have the state pay for your sex realignment surgery.
Right.
Do you think there's something wrong with that?
Yes.
Okay, you do. Good. So we agree.
Oh, absolutely. So here's the thing. 15, you're not even young enough to legally drink.
No, exactly.
You're not legally young enough to do anything.
You and I have agreement. I think there's something wrong when a 15-year-old can go get state-funded sex reassignment surgery without telling their parents.
I agree with that, but here's the thing. I think that's wrong. I don't necessarily think that if you're 15 years old and you want to identify as some other gender, like male, him, her, non-binary.
Yes, and it's incumbent on the individual to be respectful towards that person's dignity.
Yes, of course.
But however, you must have, and you do it because you're being very respectful, as much understanding that I can say that there's two genders. You see?
Yeah, and I think you're fine. You're to consider that. You say that you're fine with there being more than one gender, as in if I want to identify something else, that's fine. You just don't want to have to call me. And I think
that's correct.
That's a fine point. But if I were to identify as another gender, wouldn't I think that your idea of two genders be a little offensive?
It might. I mean, it would be no more offensive than someone having a religious difference or political difference. See, my opinion is rooted first and foremost in biology.
Yeah, but people find their political differences to be offensive also.
No, that's okay, but I couldn't care less if people find my political differences offensive.
Okay.
Wearing this hat is considered to be offensive, despite the heroic work
I
they
would
do.
disagree simply because that hat represents the government agency, not necessarily what that government agency is doing.
It also represents the members of that government agency and their mission statement.
We can worry about what's
so,
right.
but you shouldn't.
We're right.
You shouldn't
Or we
stop
can worry about
saying or
what's your
doing
issue?
something
What's your problem?
just
How
because
can I
you
be
think
of
it's going to
service?
offend
How can I
somebody.
help? How can I
I
love
gotta get
you
to class,
today?
but thank you very much for your
It's
time.
the best way
You're really
to love
respectful. Thank you, man.
So guys, when it comes down to this, recently I, checked while I was doing schoolwork. It came to my mind because I think I reacted to video that day. So I was like, oh, for the first time, let me just check ChatGPT to see what it thinks about gender and sex. And guess what? It came up with, the definition I've been hearing a lot on the internet, and it also had along with it the non-binary option. So when I heard Charlie say it today, it just clicked back, and I'm like, I only focus like usually anybody can identify the way they want to. You have that freedom. It shouldn't even be illegal. That's what I think. Because me, right, I don't judge anybody. People you want to be, have fun as far as you know what you're doing. That justifies your actions. But I feel bad because children are going to get affected by all these things. Imagine having to fill a form in class. Your parents are not there. The form is handed out to you as a kid. You're filling the form, you have to tick the boxes if you're a male, female, and then you see a non-binary option. Because they're going to ask your teacher, what does this mean, miss? What does this mean, sir? And you're going to come up with it means if you are a transgender and then they're confused and they want to know more, and then they get deep into these things, and then they start to assume that they could be a non-binary gender rather than being a male or female. And it's just bad because it's going to affect so many children that we can't even think to what extent they're going to go. That's why you see little children of these days, having issues, saying they want to go for surgery, they want to get their breast chopped off, they want to do this. They're not up to the age where they can actually make such decisions. But people are not rebuking it. People are instead welcoming the idea, helping them to do these things which they're not supposed to do at a certain age that they're in. But guys, Leave your comments in the comment section. What do you think about this? Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to my channel. I love you.